News Hub, giving you a deep and unique insight into agribusiness, services, ICT, and innovation, industrialization, and so much more. Entrepreneurs Hub, growing your small, medium, and large business entity. With yours truly, Sandra Kahunde.
Don't miss on U24.
天启元年，
Don't miss on U24.
Entrepreneurs Hub, giving you a deep and unique insight into agribusiness, services, ICT.
Brought to you by the Uganda Electoral Commission.
You don't be in panic, and you can use it for revision when you're about to do an examination. Number 5, respect your teachers and peers. If
agribusiness, services, ICT, and innovation, industrialization, and so much more. Entrepreneurs Hub, growing your small, medium, and large business entity. With yours truly, Sandra Kahunde.
Again! What's the drama?
Drama? Colleague.
Youth, elderly, and persons with disabilities. It's time to choose our leaders. Let's show up and participate in the Special Interest Group elections. Starting June through August this year. Your vote, your voice. My vote, my voice. This message is brought to you by the Uganda Electoral Commission.
they help us relate with others. For example, family, cousins, and friends at school, and many others. How do you make those friendships meaningful? Surround yourself with people who inspire, uplift, and support you. Meaningful friendships are a treasure, and having them in your life can bring joy. Invest in friendships that nourish your mind, heart, and soul. Remember, meaningful friendships are a two-way street. Be willing to show up, listen, and support, and you'll find that that same love and support you gave will come back to you.
Don't miss on U24.
Entrepreneurs Hub, giving you a deep and unique insight into agribusiness, services, ICT, and innovation, industrialization, and so much more. Entrepreneurs Hub, growing your small, medium, and large business entity. With yours truly, Sandra Kahunde.
To Hidire, coming to you from Be Money Wiser, and we're going to be bringing to you the hashtag 100 Ways to Be Money Wiser by Mrs. T. Tilda Nabandra. We're going to be running
Youth of Purpose.
A very good evening, and you're welcome to U24 Television. And of course, this is your favorite and most interesting youth show, Youth of Purpose. Now, my name is Chesley Nankunda, and today we're going to be discussing a recap on the NRM primaries, but also what to expect in the general elections. Last week on Thursday, we had primaries, NRM primaries, which is the ruling party, and it had very many questions around it. most of the incumbents, especially from the Western, did not make it back. But also questions of will they bounce back in the general elections? Do we expect new faces? And also, where do we as young people fall? So that is going to be our conversation today. And I have a very interesting panel. I'm going to start it off with Emanzi. Emanzi, just say hello to the viewers.
Hello, viewers. My name is Michai Manzi, and I'm glad to be here today for this program.
Thank you, Emanzi. Emanzi is a Pan-Africanist, and we are happy to always have you join the conversation. Next to Emanzi is Irene. Irene, please, if you can introduce yourself to us.
Hello, my name is Nyafono Irene, and I'm glad to be here today.
Thank you. Thank you, Irene, for joining us. Next to Irene is Kwesiga. Kwesiga, please, if you can introduce yourself to us.
Thank you so much, Trust me, our dear host, and to you, the viewers, good evening. I'm very excited to be part of this very important discussion which affects you and I, and so I look forward to making interventions in this very powerful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to start it off with Emanzi, just to give us a synopsis of what happened or what you saw or what you heard, especially in terms of the NRM primaries. Did you vote?
Thank you very much, Tracy. So, regarding the national lining behind the back, it had two, in my own opinion, it had two, one of the clearest ways to show somebody's potential in terms of voters openly. Okay? Secondly, where the problem was when the results started getting the four founders of the party, which I found very interesting. Because why would we have a process that is supposed to be open and transparent, marred by such incidents of violence? It points to in my opinion, points to two problems. One, we are still having a problem with pre-organization of these elections in terms of, one, how do we organize polling stations and eliminate the triggers of what would be the pressure points of violence? Two, what are the conflict resolution mechanisms that we're having? Because many a time, the candidates that have lost, they're all saying we are going to come back as independent candidates. So if we're going to be having the same candidates in the same system another time, we got to brace ourselves. I thank you.
Wow. When you look at voting by lining up, I think we also saw a video of a certain member of parliament where even students were brought from secondary and whichever institutions to line up. But also we saw where you're having this, and I got to know from a certain friend, you find people have voted, let's say you have 200 people, and maybe 100 have voted, but you're going to find records show that the 200 all voted in terms of the results. So Irene, according to you, do you think that the idea of lining up, and especially where people do not feel that freeness to do what they are doing, you're lining up because your husband is telling you, if I see you lining up in the back of another candidate, you're leaving my home. Do you think it is quite an interesting and fair process? And also, should it be a bar that I accept I have lost it and do not come back?
Thank you very much, Treslin. As one of the party members, and I've been elected, and I'm here because of that same process, I think it's, to me, to a great extent, it is a good one. But it is also coming with its own challenges, because we will see there were a lot of intimidations, because here you have to make a decision where everyone is going to see you. If it is your husband, you're not going to go and tick, and maybe when they told you vote so and so, you reach in the ballot, you switch. You have to stand. So what I feel, it's a good one, but how we are implementing or how we are carrying it out is bad. We are having now a lot of people getting scared, especially the women. Maybe the young people, you can make an independent decision, but I think it's weighing so much on the women. You have different decisions, you have different people you're supporting. So we tend to have a lot turn up, especially to the women. But generally, in the just concluded elections, I think in the most areas, it was fair. And I feel like that system is good because if you were not working for the people and they feel there's need for change, you realize, you look behind you and say, yes, I think it's time for me to go. So I feel like in that way, it's fair. Even whoever is contesting, you will know and weigh, other than the private ticking or the ballot ticking. Here, yes, maybe the cheating was a bit there, but to a greater extent, most of the areas it was a success. Because it was a matter of saying 1, 2, 3, this is 10, this is 5. So those areas where we had intimidation, where we had some altering of the forms, and it comes in most cases whereby maybe what I realized when I was in the field, the agents of the particular aspirants, after people have voted, they disperse of the voters, the registrar remains behind, with most times the agents of the interested parties who fill the forms. They have a number of forms they fill. So in between is where you find, if a register had 500 people and only 200 turned up, they can do a plus 100 and now fill a form which shows 300 people voted out of 500 in the register. That means they've not gone overboard. They are still within the range of the register, but there's a rigging happening. So I don't know, but however, I felt like it would be a safe system, but we didn't just have maybe enough civic education or alerting people that after voting, after making these lines, please remain in place. And also we need also to challenge our women, or maybe also talk to the men and tell them we all have different choices. Maybe what is good for you may not necessarily be good for me. If you're the head of the family, it does not necessarily mean that you have to decide for me because you support so and so. I should also make that particular line. We can't overlook such challenges, especially with the women and then also with the youth. Now, the instance you talked of young people, I also sound as like, wow. What I know, it was supposed to be members in the register, 18 and above. I think someone going as far as ferrying students from various places, I'm not certain whether they are in those registers or they overpowered the registrars to bring in such numbers. But I think those are shortcomings generally. The party has a lot of work to do to fill in or to cover up such gaps, because whereas the election was a success, we also had a lot of shortcomings as a party. And we are still lacking a reconciliation method or the post-election, because I'm seeing a lot of grievances, and it, like he said, it looks like we are going to have half of people who fail coming back in primaries. Is the party losing control over its members? Do we put guidelines that we don't follow? So there's some bit of challenges here and there, but generally I would support the lining up, because most times you would not say they cheated you. In most areas they didn't cheat people. People wanted change and they went for what they wanted. Thank you.
Interesting. So when we get back to Kwesiga here, the legal protection, especially in terms of elections, we have seen various people come through election petitions already, but also we well know that some of the same people are always decrying the unfair justice system. But again, if they're crying of the unfair justice system and then they're saying, this is the right way for me to go, what happens if they fail again?
Therefore, I'd want to start by saying that this is a matter for us, and so it affects us. So the process of how it is conducted and how it is run and its outcomes affect us, and it's a matter that indeed we ought to pay attention to. So I'm glad that we discuss about the same this evening. Now, Article 1 of the Constitution makes it categorically clear that sovereignty is to the people. And in that regard, people shall choose who leads them, and they shall determine the process. The question then, if I were to ask, including my sister just right here, do you imagine that this process was fair enough for us now to have the confidence and look standard to say that this process was indeed one for which people participated and did it exercise their will? Honestly speaking, I would think it wasn't. Now, Article 59 of the Constitution gives us a right to vote for as long as you are Ugandan of 18 years and above. You have a right to vote. So it's indeed worth our discussion. Now, going back to our to your question, the aspect of people who have lost the election now appealing and petitioning for redress, I have a point to make, and I really want to say that the process or the petition might not on its own do much, because the process its own, in my honest opinion, has not been a fair process, because there have been incidents and incidences of outright vote rigging and the violence that many of us have seen, that has given authority and the locus standi for people, even those who feel that they have really lost, but they are now going to privilege on the point and the fact that there has been vote rigging that has been talked about and has been widely seen. So a person now comes to petition, yet in actual sense, if this was a fair process, they ideally wouldn't have thought for that redress because they know they lost. But because the election to me has been very unfair, so everyone, including one that has actually lost and they feel it, they are now coming back to petition. Now, the point of people, so many of them, of course, there are people that have opted for petitioning, and there are those, many of them I have seen saying that I do not find it important for me to petition because the same way I detest the process that led to this result is the same way I do not have trust in the authority that is going to handle the petition. So these are people now that have taken a position of either I am not coming completely, let it slide, and the majority who say, for me, this is not the people's voice. So I am coming back as independent to seek the people's voice. So definitely, irrespective of what the results of the petitions are going to be, because I imagine that many of them, nothing is actually going to change. Many of them, let's wait and see, but I don't think much is going to change. Many of those that have lost, quote unquote, are still going to get the same results from the petitions. So many of these are going to come back independent, and that's a different question altogether. I hope this answers your question.
Yeah, it's
so
sure.
At the end of the day, I do not think that the outcomes of the petitions are going to alter anything. Person who already has taken a position of I am going to come back as independent, they are only going now waiting for the petition results just for its sake, but they already know what their next move is. So this petition for me is as redundant as the process itself has been. Yeah.
Okay, Emanzi, in the primaries, we had people, very young students from school, primary and secondary. And 2026, issues around people running away with ballot boxes, but also people having pre-ticked ballots.
Yeah.
What do you expect in the general elections? Is it going to be better or is it going to be worse?
Truthfully speaking, I expect worse. I don't want to sound optimistic in a system where we have seen where the flaws are, and we have measured them against the intervention mechanisms there is and those that are being proposed. That is where we draw the line, right? Because right now, as a party, the National Resistance Movement has an internal structure of conflict resolution internally, right? They have a whole legal team, they have an arbitration team, among others. And I want to think this is the time that they should be in overdrive. Not so much for the people that lost and the cases they're working on, but much for the confidence of the Wananchi. The reason I say this is because the more such incidents happen affiliated to a certain party that has been in power for the last 3.9 decades, whether you like it or not, the public trust will swindle. Yeah. And this is what happens. The law of conservation of energy states that a body will stay in that state of energy unless acted upon by an external force, either internally or externally. So when we look at how the events unfolded, right? So that means now the body, let's use this as a body in physics, right? We see that there is a force that is acting on this body, the body being the democracy, internal democracy of the party. The energy that is working on it now is an external energy of bribery, intimidation, ballot stuffing, basically lack of ideology, monetization of obscene levels. So that is the energy that is acting on this body. So how do we expect the body to react? Because there has to be a reaction. And this is how the reaction comes. One, people lose the trust. So people are going to flood with the independent narrative. And the more we are having the independent narrative, that shakes the most basic tenets of the foundation of the party. Because if this is our party, we have an internal disagreement, I go independent. That means that I'm setting aside the entire party ideology, structure, and programs. I am not aligning to you. Yes, our democratic dispensation system, it has a system where you could be an independent candidate leaning towards a certain political party or a certain school of thought. My question is, with all these grievances that we've seen, right?
Yes.
Do we expect these people to come back in the same system that messed them up, especially the losers? No. Also, we have to remember that not everybody lost. The ones that won are happy and appreciate the system. You get? Mm-hmm. So I think that is where the conundrum is. One group is saying, no, this is okay because I came through. The other group is saying, no, you cheated me. This is wrong. I'm going to come solo and beat the system, which is a very good thing for democracy. Democracy has to have those pull and push factors. However, there is extremes that we should not get into, because then it wipes away all the wins that we have garnered in the last 50 plus years of our democracy as a state. And now, notwithstanding, National Resistance Movement being the oldest and the biggest party in the country, when you do this, what precedent are you setting? Because the next time there is going to be primaries of another political party, trust me, they're going to pick notes from you, right? So if you see violence in another camp, how do you say that is bad when it happened in your backyard? So I think that is where we have to be more honest with the democracy that we are embracing. Are we going into this politics as a matter of life and death, or is it a matter of my ideas are better than your ideas? And let us convince the people. If the people think your ideas are better than mine, let them vote for you. I will support you. That is the democracy I think that we long for as Africa and Uganda in particular. I beg to submit.
Wow. It seems that everyone who comes under NRM expects to win. There's no one who wants to lose. Irene, what awaits your political party? Because if we are seeing majority of young people and incumbents who have lots saying, I'm coming back in the next election, where do the values of what principles they believed in disappear from? But also, how best do you think reconciliation can be done? Because if it stays like this, you're going to have either independents or other parties taking on. So what is it that your party represents that people think an election must be not even fair, because people perceive fairness as excellency?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now, I want to agree with my colleagues on some aspects. Having a party that has been in power, so we say 40 years, or making 40 years, and with a majority population, I would say there is a challenge, or there are challenges. We cannot overlook whether you're in the party or you're outside. They are not stable. And I think we are also facing a challenge where, from the recent just concluded elections, you'd realize that, like he said, I think there's some force that it's going back even to the grassroots, that even the voters are now realizing and maybe sending a message back to the party or to the party top leaders that there's something that is wrong, there's something that has to be done. The recent concluded primaries, almost 8% incumbents are off, ministers are off. Which message are they sending? There's a message they are sending to the top party leaders. Something is not right. There are some things we need to put right. Because as it goes, we are reaching a time whereby whoever comes, they must win. That is what they have. Like, there's no tendency of saying that maybe you can have a healthy competition, you lose and maybe back up. No one is willing to back up the other one. If I don't win, they have cheated. Genuinely, there are people who have lost. And also, on the other hand, There are also areas where you could see it didn't go right. And the party also, I feel like at this point, the party also needs to own up to some of these issues. They need to find a better mechanism, because you can't set guidelines that you later on can't follow, or you can't even defend. We're having guidelines, they are saying if you fail, don't come back. But because you want the majority population, we are going to have half come back as independent. And when they reach parliament, you're going to have now different ideas. They don't, some may even go to the other side. So I feel like generally the party has to do something. We have to find an internal mechanism of how we are going to handle this. I don't see it better in 2026 having to have two people, same party, come fight for the flag. I don't see it giving a good picture to the party. Vis-a-vis what he said, there are other parties also who look up to NRM, the massive party. So when the massive party is messing like this, what should we expect from the neighboring party, you know? So I feel like I'm a young person. I don't want to pretend like I'm not seeing these things. Yes, I'm in the party. I see these challenges. So it's not a matter of saying I'm in NRM and everything is perfect. It's not real perfect. I feel like, but the most important thing I've loved with this election is the young people embraced the elections. Many have taken spaces. We are going to have a parliament, hopefully 2026, with many young people. So I expect maybe something far better than what we have been having. I expect them maybe to bring that force that we need to put some things right in the party, if we still need the party to be long. But if we continue with the way it's running now, we are going to have a problem. And I'm hoping the challenges we are facing right now are handled in a better way that will encourage us and motivate us to know that, yes, we are in a right party, that we think that's the right thing, because it is also affecting us, the young rising stars within the party. We are fighting wars with veterans. You don't have space. But I think it's better to fight within than fight from outside. So that's why we are in the party, and I hope we are going to put things right. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. Kwesiga. Violence. Physical violence, emotional violence, financial violence, gender-based violence, all those forms of violences. They could have been there. Actually, they were in this lining up kind of election. 2026. What are the precautions you give against violence? And how should voters protect themselves? Because it's not entirely about the candidates. And this is worse because now we have opposition, we have NRM all coming through. And with a state of atmosphere that we always see, what protection should voters be aware of?
Thank you so much, Traceline. Now, a psychologist in the names of Felipe Zambado is a proponent of what is called the broken window theory. And this theory was later on built on by a gentleman called George Kelling. Now, under the broken window theory, it does suggest, it speaks to society that there are things that happen initially as small things, and we intend to overlook them. And that when that happens, you let this grow. If this was a child, you've let it. You've given it an avenue to grow and become bigger. This communicates to the violence and to the kind of elections that we actually have. I want to say that in the past 10 years, it's not been as it is today. That every other time you have an election season, the degree of violence has now grown. And it's at a point where every other person, including the contestants, are feeling the heat. Now this time, not just the voters, but even the contestants, of the violence that they let grow, including, in fact, many of the incumbents that have lost have fallen victims to this kind of violence. In that you have now a person coming against you and they have a very good stock of violence for you, and now you cannot match it. It is stronger than your team. You get it? Yeah. So this is a dose that every other person gets to test. And I must say that it is very unfortunate. Now, another thing I must say is that an election is not an event. a true election is not you lining up behind a person you want to vote for, or even taking a ballot paper, but it's about the entire process. So an election is the process. Most times, what does determine the nature of an election is not the day of the voting, but rather how has the process been. You might have people lining up peacefully and everything, but the point then is, how did these people get to line up behind you? So it's a process. And if I were to ask you, many of you we are from different parts of the country, and you've been witnesses to this. If I were to ask you, including in places where there seems to have been a moderately peaceful election, have you inquired to get behind the curtains to know what actually happened, what the different contestants did to get to that day? It's very absurd. Now, violence is such a bad thing in that it even alters people's choice. That because of violence, if your choice and your decision was initially to vote, you might not even vote. 1, for fear of your life. 2, for an imagination that even your vote might not even matter. That what matters is what people shall do in the process of the violence. That is really what matters the most. So it's something that I personally would condemn. Specifically, now getting back to your question, a few days ago I was having a discussion with a group of my friends, and I was condemning this kind of violence, and they seemed to suggest that it's very bad for me to condemn it, that people should fight for what they believe in. But then the question I was asking them is, are people fighting the injustice and the unfair system, or are voters instead fighting themselves? In most cases, it is supporters of Tracelyn against supporters of Irene. So where is the injustice you fight? You are only fighting yourselves as voters. So this is very unfortunate. The question then of how do they take shelter? How do they find refuge? What do they do to avoid it? What mechanisms and measures can we have? One is, you see, it's very bad to lose hope, and hope is the last thing we should ever lose. So I do not want to sound like I am pessimistic, but society, by history, society never goes beyond the average thinking capacity of its citizens. So looking at our citizenry that we do have, few of us can be able to speak this English and have been to class, and our reasoning is relatively bigger. Although at some point I have my personal betrayals with the elite class. But many of the citizens are poor. They've not studied. And now, according to Karl Marx, who speaks to what he calls who refers to as the lumpens, that every time you have very poor people who have nothing to lose, they are always available to cause any kind of violence. They are available to offer cheap labor for violence. Even looking at history, looking at the likes of Mussolini and Adolf Hitler, this is the kind of group they used. And still, he talks to what he refers to as the base and superstructure metaphor, where he says that the economics sits at the base of this pyramid and every other aspect of society is above the economics. So the moment people are poor, trust me, reason is far above them. Reason is far above them. So there is not much we can change. For as long as you've promised these people 5K at the end of the day, and you've given them assurance that go and do all it takes, just return and get the money, this person is going to do everything. So what makes it really complex is that it's not a matter of where leaders can intervene, but it's about us. Have you sensed that even within the environment, when it's approaching this kind of season, people are eager, including those that find it as an opportunity to beat you because you had an encounter somewhere. Now an election season has offered an opportunity for them to come and beat you for nothing. Have you seen people that have been to campaign trails of different leaders and after that have gone on rampage on streets and grabbed people in broad daylight? Have we not seen this? Irrespective of what parties we affiliate to. Did you see it even when the president had come to, is it to pick nominations or to return them? We all saw this. So this is the kind of the citizenry that we have. So as to a question of what really can we do, I think there is not much we can do. But the only input required here is the leaders. The leaders that ideally should be speaking to their supporters and telling them, please, let's make this as peaceful as we can. So only then you can be able to have this kind of violence reduced. Should that fail to be met, then you'd not expect so much of change. So for me, this becomes a litmus test of what we are about to face in 2026. I don't want to sound so pessimistic, but I do not expect so much of a difference because our leaders' mentality is the same. They want to use violence to their advantage. Likewise, you open it. So it's violence meeting violence, head-to-head collision. So I do not see it getting reduced anytime soon. But with God's intervention, we hope for the best.
Interesting. With God's intervention, we hope for the best. I'm going to get your parting shots. I'll start it off with Emanzi. Put some hope in us young people, but also the general populace in terms of elections ahead.
The elections that are coming ahead, well, the forthcoming general elections of 2026 are, I think, in my opinion, are going to be a spectacle to behold as a country. Why? Because we have General Yoweri Museveni, who's saying that he is coming for his last term. And we're having also a plethora of other political parties that are mushrooming by the day. I'm sorry to use the word mushrooming, but the rate at which they are being registered or being formed is rather exponential. So you'd excuse me for that. The other thing that I'd like to talk about is this thing that we're talking about of security and violence. I think that intertwined in such a way that if you look at, let me take you just a bit behind, about 20 years ago, when Dr. Kizza Besigye was coming, for his first time in 2001, there was a then military guy called Kakoza Mutale who formed, I don't know with what powers, a group called the Kalanga Action Plan. They were not soldiers, they were like a militia group that would go causing havoc, beating people that were... So it's a trend that has come. So it's incumbent on us as young people to identify the triggers of violence, neutralize them, but most importantly, participate in the democratic processes of our country, express ourselves, be part of the revolution for the new Uganda that we want in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Irene, please, your parting shots, if you can keep it 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Tweslin. For me, I would encourage, and I think I should start with tomorrow's elections because we have very many young people who are participating, especially many of them have come as councillors, LC5s. Let's keep the momentum. It's not easy out there, but I think we have to dive in and take up these spaces. The change is going to come maybe with us. So we have to fight to be within. It's very hard to create change when you're not within the system. It's not as good as we want, but let's try to put ourselves there and put things right. I believe we have better or fresh ideas to put forward. So I want to tell my fellow young people, don't lose hope. Go out there, get those positions, and we shall put things right. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. Kwesiga, your parting shots.
Thank you so much, moderator, once again. Now, my biggest worry for this country is not about the kind of leadership that we have or the leadership that we've had, but the kind of leadership that we are about to have. That speaks now to those that are contesting and taking part in this election. I hope and pray, and my hope is that there will be different kind of leaders. And on this note, I want to credit and say bravo to the young people and women that have been brave enough to understand this process and to partake of it. My prayer then is that should you get to those tables of decision making and intervention, please be a different kind of leadership that we would be proud of. If things are going south, the best we can do is not to proceed, but rather to change the steering and face the direction that we would have allowed to face. Very lastly, is that I am never one of the people that have believed in failure to vote. If there is something that I will always champion and say I am in support of, is exercising your right. Because if the process is not fair and you refuse to vote, the two of you have been wrong, including the process and you who has not voted. Go vote, cast your vote, exercise your choice. Let now the fault be on the process, but for you as a citizen, you've played your part. So I hope that moving forward, we have a relatively peaceful election. The worst that can happen is for people to die and they do not even have the opportunity to see the people they were running for or even supporting. That is the worst that could happen. Otherwise, thank you so much, Traceline and U24 TV, for having us for this very powerful discussion. It's been nice making deliberations with the rest of my panelists. Good evening to you.
Thank you so much, Kwesiga. Thank you so much, Irene. Thank you so much, Emanzi, for accepting our invitation and adding to the conversation. This is your space. This is U24, and we've been discussing issues around the recap of NRM primaries, but also our expectations ahead of the general elections. Takeaways is that we need to front an election free of violence, but also exercise your right to vote, because Article 59 of the Constitution guarantees you that. And also, conclusively, is that we must make sure that we take the step to be frontliners of participation. Participation that is effective, but also choosing leaders that we think are going to be transformative in being able to address the challenges that societies face. Tomorrow there are elections, and we do hope and pray for the best candidates to win, but do not stay at home. Go to the election point and vote. Thank you so much to the team behind production. We thank you for the efforts put in, and also be sure to catch us next Wednesday, same time, same place. Thank you.
Youth of Purpose.
Hi, my name is Tracy.
And I'm Dora.
We're here to present the 100 Ways to Be Money Wiser by Mrs. T. Tilda Nabanja. Hashtag 10. To be money wiser means being keenly focused on our dream, writing more facts about it, visualizing it daily, researching a lot about it, and finding happiness in it. Not because it's complete yet, but because we treasure the journey and sacrifice towards achieving it.
My dear, do you have a dream or a goal? Have you written it down? Do you think about it every day? Do you meditate about it? That is the way to go. With your dream and the goal visualized, written down, and thought about every single time is the way to go to achieve it. Let's be
money wiser.
I seem to mess it up almost every time.
Permission to come aboard. I'm feeling really sick.